If Drake and Kendrick Lamar got in a rap battle, who do you think would win?
Gotta go with Kendrick.
Let me ask you a question. What is more important, ingenuity or popularity? Kendrick Lamar is one of the highest rated music artists of all time. His 2017 album, Damn, received the Pulitzer Prize for Music and the Best Rap Album at the 2018 Grammy Awards. His 2012 album, Good Kid, Mad City, is a universally loved album about the hardships of growing up in Compton. The Rolling Stone called it the greatest concept album of all time, and it received 4 Grammy Award nominations and was certified triple platinum. Then, his jazz rap masterpiece, released in 2015 to Pimp a Butterfly, is the highest rated album of all time by users on Album of the Year and Rate Your Music. Highly inspired by racial hardship and identity based on his experiences visiting South Africa. It is widely considered to be the most important piece of music made this century. It unifies so many different cultures and discusses so many complex issues in only an hour and 18 minutes of runtime. It received 11 Grammy nominations, the most nominations for any rapper in one night, as well as the best rap album of that year. Kendrick deals with many heavy topics in every single record, like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, covering his journey through therapy, exposing generational trauma, loss, and childhood. Despite the topics being so heavy, it never feels cheaply done and is always made with a lot of passion. He is a mainstream rapper with a big influence, but he has not learned to misuse it. Drake is the 12th largest artist in the world according to Spotify. According to himself, he has more hits than the Beatles, with over 10 of his songs wielding over 1 billion listens on Spotify, with several of those being 2 or 3 billion. His 2013 album, Nothing Was the Same, is widely considered to be his best, and it debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard 200. It became the 7th best-selling album of 2013. His song One Dance is played at least 57 times a day on every single retail radio. No, I promise, I'm not traumatized by that, and is a worldwide hit even now. Another major hit, God's Plan, shook the world culturally as he spent the budget of the video giving money to people rather than spending it on a flashy video. Both artists are titans in the music industry, so naturally, when one starts a war, it wouldn't end pretty. Despite being one of the biggest artists of all time, calling Drake universally loved would be controversial. Let's bring ourselves up to speed a bit here. Drake slowly became a laughingstock on the internet for a number of things, notably because he was a Canadian rapper that made a lot of chart-bait music without too much meaning. He was not taken as seriously as some of the more cultured artists in the US or even in the UK. In 2011, a relatively small group of people began making memes on Twitter which began the format Drake the Type of Guy. It was popularized to a greater extent in 2013, but would really blow up several years later in the 2020s. Additionally, in 2018, the rapper Pusha T released the song The Story of Adidon, which exposed a son, Adonis, that Drake had been hiding. Despite only admitting to it in 2020, Drake's reputation was flamed because of this incident. Around this time, some very concerning clips of Drake with a 17-year-old fan on stage resurfaced from 2010. It didn't help that the then underage Millie Bobby Brown was very comfortable talking about her great relationship with Drake. These really dodgy interactions, coupled with Pusha T's expose, only fed the flames when it came to mockery of Aubrey, with a lot of the Drake the Type of Guy memes to become more accusatory. Despite being jokes, his reputation as a titan was questioned. Because of this cultural shift, music critics got a lot more comfortable giving his albums lower ratings, especially after the release of his album Certified Lover Boy in 2021, which includes possibly the worst lyric in music history. His albums after that point received critical whatever the opposite of acclaim would be, and his popularity as a musician, despite remaining very high, dwindled slightly. Allegations of having ghostwriters appeared left, right, and centre, and Drake was not looking particularly loved. On Certified Lover Boy, Drake released a song called No Friends in the Industry. Just appreciate my very subtle foreshadowing here. Despite rocky beginnings, like Drake dissing Kendrick on his own record, the feud officially started when another artist by the name of J. Cole referred to himself, Drake, and Kendrick as the big three in the rap industry in their collaboration first-person shooter. While this statement is definitely an interesting one, considering there are many artists that could hold that title more than J. Cole or Drake, there was one person particularly offended by this. On the same song, J. Cole and Drake made a lot of sneak disses at Kendrick, which continued into several other songs as well. Fast forward to March 2024, Future and Metro Boomin released their first collaboration album, We Don't Trust You. The entire album, and yes, I mean practically the entire album, was a Drake diss. Despite being frequent collaborators in the past, Future had clearly developed a problem with Drake. The album included features from Rick Ross, Travis Scott, Playboi Carti, and The Weeknd. The sixth song on the album featured a very familiar artist, Kendrick Lamar. His verse, despite being a very small part of the hour-long runtime, was one of the most brutal verses to appear on it. Kendrick warns J. Cole and Drake not to speak because it would lead to their demise. He makes multiple digs at Drake's albums and takes time to mention that it's not the big three, it's just Big Me. He also made jabs at how respect is more important than money and power, something that Drake and J. Cole frequently flex themselves as having. The unique instrumental from Metro, the harsh, angry, and out-of-the-blue bars from Kendrick, and Future's additional disses combined to make a brutal song on an otherwise fairly mediocre album. The disses were not particularly groundbreaking, but just aggressive enough to spark a response. And on April 5th, J. Cole responded in the album called Might Delete Later in a song titled 7 Minute Drill, where, in response to Lamar saying that respect is more important than money, he brags about Kendrick wanting attention from him. Kendrick shortly confronted him on this, and J. Cole was very quick to apologise, despite being on tour with Drake at the time. But it was time for Drake to respond. Despite Kendrick's warning to not open his mouth, Drake's response to We Don't Trust You, titled Push-Ups, was actually a very good diss track when all is said and done. He successfully manoeuvred a 20v1 and fired shots at each person on the album, including calling Kendrick a Swiftie because of his really awful collaboration with Taylor on Bad Blood, as well as a reference to the fact that Taylor loves Kendrick's music. He also made jokes calling Kendrick short, because he is. On the 19th of April, Drake fired a second shot specifically at Kendrick in the lesser-known Tailor-Made freestyle. Despite saying that AI voice replacement had gone too far, Drake incorporated an AI voice of Tupac and Snoop Dogg in the song, mocking Kendrick and prompting him to release another diss track in the name of West Coast hip-hop. In the final verse of the song, normally voiced Drake jokes that Lamar's silence in response to Push-Ups was due to not wanting to be overshadowed by Taylor Swift in her release of The Tortured Poets Department. A mere 11 days later though, Kendrick finally responded with the release of his song Euphoria, adding to his warning from Like That by claiming, "Don't tell no lie about me, and I won't tell truths about you." Kendrick reassures that he is the only great of the big three, mentions Drake's previous wars and controversies, and claims that Aubrey is not truly part of black culture. In response to Drake's multiple unnecessary name drops in Push-Ups, Kendrick turns many of his bars into disses about Drake, using people he's had rivalries with, or even just making comparisons as disses to him. He escalated the stakes very rapidly by blatantly saying that he hates every single thing about Drake. He accuses him of having ghostwriters, he criticizes Drake's own record label, OVO, jokes about Drake sending a cease and desist for Like That, and ends by telling Drake that he doesn't want to hear him say the N-word anymore, basically revoking his identity in black culture completely and making a jab at Aubrey's insecurity of only being half black. Kendrick brought the tension up higher by bringing up many things to criticize Drake for, while also being a major banger. Bear in mind, we went from, "No man, I'm the greatest," to "I hate everything about you." This track was a brutal enough hit to force Aubrey into responding, but little did anyone else realise at the time that this was only the beginning. If Euphoria wasn't already a big enough blow, Kendrick added 616 in LA to the mix. Not released on Spotify, so not as universally acclaimed, but also very brutal. The title of the track alone is a non-topple entendre. Thanks to user/onyourtop on Reddit, the possible meanings are Tupac's birthday, calling out Drake for the AI verse, Canadian Father's Day, some subtle foreshadowing for what's to come, as well as a reference to his poor fatherhood. It also implies throughout the song that Kendrick is fathering Drake. Several different Bible verses in Revelation, Jeremiah, Luke, and 1 Corinthians. The date of Nicole Brown Simpson's funeral, O.J. Simpson's trial start date, Euphoria TV show airing date, Abraham Lincoln's House Divided speech, and of course, the track was dropped at 6:16 in the morning. With layers of foreshadowing through referencing O.J. Simpson, even including a glove on the album cover, he was implying that either Drake had done something similar to O.J., or that Kendrick was threatening to kill Aubrey's career and hide it away. Like how Drake released 2 tracks in response to Lamar, this is essentially Kendrick's second of his equivalent, responding directly to the tailor-made freestyle by even having Jack Antonoff, Taylor Swift's main producer, produce the song, so that it was literally tailor-made. Kendrick mocks Drake using his own rapping style and bragging about his material wealth to accentuate his point on respect being more important. It also jabs at Drake's use of Tupac's voice and style in his own song. He alludes to K-Doc's verse on their first collaboration, Buried Alive interlude, where he warns Drake not to succumb to fame, which Lamar implies Drake failed his own advice. Kendrick slowly and categorically deconstructs Drake's style of music, mocks his materialist nature, and deconstructs his past controversies, destroying the top 3 layers of the Drake pyramid. Drake's reputation was further under concern by the release of We Still Don't Trust You, the sequel to Future and Metro's previous album, this time including jabs from multiple other artists, namely a diss about Drake's label OVO Sound from the biggest artist in the world, The Weeknd. Otherwise, the album was fairly mediocre, if not just plain bad. Drake had his hand forced to respond directly to Kendrick again, which he did in a seemingly brutal way. He starts by proving Kendrick right through using the N-word multiple times, including the first word of the song, despite the call-out in Euphoria being a catch-22 of either proving he's insecure about not being black, or letting Kendrick take a win. However, the track goes on offense for the first time from Drake, instead of merely responding. Aubrey accuses Kendrick of being a domestic abuser, and that he has a child which isn't even his own. The track has a beat switch, and is widely regarded as being fire. It was a great track, and would definitely go down in history as one of the best diss tracks. Very shortly after Drake released Family Matters, by which I mean less than an hour later, K-Dot released the brutal, disgusting and horrifying song known as Meet the Grahams, widely considered to be the most brutal diss track of all time and a disgusting response to Drake, holding a 98 on Album of the Year, with many people calling it the best diss track of all time. This may be a niche reference, but I'll make it anyway. In 2017, during the diss track beef between former Minecraft YouTuber Skydoes Minecraft, aka NetNobody, and former FIFA YouTuber KSI, 2 tracks were also released on the same day. KSI dropped the brutal song Adam's Apple, where he calls out Adam for abuse of his baby mama, which would later be proven accurate, and even features her on the song. Similar to Meet the Grahams, however, less than an hour after, Adam released his own song called Bend the Knee, knowing many of the points JJ was going to make, but it aged terribly for him due to many of the things that he didn't know KSI was about to say. Meet the Grahams is like if you combined Adam's Apple and Bend the Knee into one brutal song. Despite still being overlooked, 616 in LA also begins scraping at another layer of the pyramid, where Kendrick very subtly references a party that Madison Beer went to at 17 hosted by Drake, where there were allegedly many underage girls. Something that Kendrick will tear into thoroughly in Meet the Grahams. If Family Matters were the lies that Drake allegedly tells about Kendrick, Meet the Grahams are the truths that Kendrick allegedly promised to tell about Drake, assuming they're actually true. The title is as blatant as it gets, and the song is completely stripped back, telling everybody exactly what Kendrick wants them to know. The song works as a letter to each member in the Aubrey Grahams' family, progressively getting more intense with each verse, starting with a letter to Drake's son, apologising for Drake being a deadbeat dad, following up by telling Drake's parents of how he disrespects women and how they raised a terrible person, mentioning OVO Records' harbouring of different individuals and directly calling Drake a pervert himself. The scratches from 616 had become a full-on nuclear explosion in Meet the Grahams. But the real brunt of the track would come in the third verse, where Kendrick potentially pulls the same move as Pusha T, exposing yet another one of Drake's alleged hidden children, this time a daughter. Again, calling him a deadbeat dad and making references to his previous album where he tackles a lot of the issues alluded to in the song. He ends off with a letter directly to Drake, doubling down on a lot of the claims. Where the abuse allegations would have hit Kendrick hard, he threw them back at Drake with double the strength and accused Drake of countless other horrible things that he had done to women. And he already had the upper hand because Drake has a history of lying about this sort of thing, even if what Kendrick is saying is completely fabricated. If we take a moment to step back, one would realise that this is unapologetically insane. We went from calling Kendrick short to full-blown accusations on a surprise fourth track from Kendrick. Absolutely crazy. After categorically annihilating Drake's career in Meet the Grahams, there was only one layer left in the pyramid to destroy. He had gone through each layer, including Drake's reputation as a person, but the final layer was popularity.
I see dead people.
With this, on the 4th of May, Kendrick released the banger of a track called Not Like Us. The song explicitly mentions Drake liking them young, that he is a certified graphic design student's exports, and that he's trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
I know it's your job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause.
Which is not only a reference to the obvious, but he's also saying that Drake isn't black because there are no black keys on an A minor scale. Kendrick further criticised Drake for profiting off of black culture when it benefited him, while also keeping his white privilege. He mocks the OVO record label again, ruining its reputation to a repeated OVO bar. He doubles down on all the other accusations he's made and practically dances on Drake's grave. While not being the most damning song, it was certainly chart bait. Many musicians know when their song is going to be a hit, and Not Like Us was undoubtedly no exception. It replicated Drake's chart bait style and inevitably worked. It became an instant success all around the world, being played in the background of an NBA game with LeBron James bobbing his head to it, being played in cars publicly, fans singing it directly to Drake, adverts online using the song, it going trending and quickly accumulating over 400 million listens on Spotify. This tactical release was made after all of the other allegations, so that this song would break the scene massively and the whole world could see all of the accusations in their full capacity. Kendrick also started lightly, at least relatively, so that Drake would be prompted to respond. Therefore, when the accusations were as big as they were in Not Like Us and Meet the Grahams, Drake has to respond or else it looks terrible on him. Another pre-planned catch-22. Everyone at this point was saying that it was so over for Drake. Until Drake responded. Oh wait, never mind, people said it was still over for Drake after his response. Either way, Drake did respond. He released the track The Heart Part 6, making it so that when Kendrick attempts to ever follow up The Heart Part 5, it will always be associated with Drake. In the song, Drake calls Kendrick a liar about the daughter, saying that he has somebody feeding Kendrick fake information about it. He also said that Whitney doesn't follow her fiancé on Instagram. Shocking stuff, I know. But aside from that, the track is a real self-report. The last sliver to the pyramid to destroy was practically self-destruction. He said he expected the Jeffrey Epstein angle? Why's that, Drake? Why's that? Promising that he would have been arrested by now because he's a celebrity. Even though celebrities are notorious for getting away with stuff for far too long. He even mentions Epstein directly in the same song, who went years potentially with the whole industry knowing what he was doing without being arrested. If anything, him being that famous would give him more influence to get people to hide it. He also mentions Millie Bobby Brown by name, despite Kendrick never mentioning her, which is another terrible self-report. Aside from the fact that he makes fun of Kendrick saying that his mother abused him, which isn't even true.
First of all, he misreads the text. The fact that one could listen to Mother, I sober, and conclude that Kendrick himself was abused is completely against the sense of the text. The text itself is about generational trauma and about the fact that his mother assumed that he must have been abused because of the abuse that she suffered herself.
It ended with Drake acting like he had absolutely destroyed everything that K. Dot had said in some sort of anime exit speech. Drake's response did not help his reputation. If anything, he destroyed it even further without Kendrick needing to do any more. Metro Boomin also conveniently managed to overshadow this release by dropping an instrumental diss track the same day called BBL Drizzy, which also went viral just like Not Like Us. Obviously not to the same extent, but it still worsened Drake's position. And just when everyone thought that K. Dot was done, he announced a pop-out concert on the 19th of June 2024. The date is significant because it adds to the Not Like Us element, mocking Drake for not even being American and hence not celebrating Juneteenth. On Juneteenth, Kendrick performed a number of songs where he brought out massive artists like Tyler the Creator, as well as people like Roddy Ricch and T.Y. Dolla $ign. People like LeBron James attended and there were multiple other celebrities there. However, it was after Dr. Dre's performance that he whispered the beginning of the dreaded Not Like Us. After which, Kendrick played Not Like Us 5 times, each time copying Drake's dance moves in the extended A minor line. It was on the 4th and 5th replay, however, that Kendrick managed to do something groundbreaking. Kendrick appears to be a very godly man. He talks a lot in his music about uniting people, particularly in To Pimp a Butterfly, while he also calls himself the biggest hater in Euphoria and annihilates Drake harder than Dan TDM gets annihilated in any competitive event he joins. Hating is not his only motive. Kendrick also strives for unity, perhaps more importantly, because while he had the entire world's attention, Kendrick decided to make history on stage. These are not just 25 random rappers, these are 25 different gangs on one stage. Crips, Bloods, Pyrus, all in one place, without a single punch thrown, uniting the whole West Coast. Obviously, being who I am, a white British stick figure, I can never truly have an understanding of how significant this is. But if the significance I feel is just a small glimpse of the reality of it, this thing is groundbreaking. Absolutely amazing. Drake mocked Kendrick in his AI Snoop Dogg voice, telling him to respond on behalf of the West Coast. So in response, Kendrick united the West Coast. Kendrick shortly followed this amazing event by speaking at Compton University, where he encourages students to just talk to God like he's the homie. Kendrick utilised this moment of attention to make a positive difference in multiple areas. While a lot of the fight with Drake was flamed with pettiness and negativity, Kendrick was, at the end of the day, bringing justice to Drake, who had already wronged so many people and allegedly wronged even more. There was a lot of conflict. One could say that Kendrick was conflicted. But still, he used his moment of greatest influence for a positive effect. He did not abuse his power, despite being full of resentment for Drake. He transformed it into something revolutionary. Hopefully, it won't turn into a depression this time. Oh, you thought Kendrick was done? Nah. On the 4th of July 2024, American Independence Day, Kendrick danced on the grave one last time by releasing Not Like Us, the music video. The video is stacked with so many references, like only doing 17 push-ups, dancing the same way Drake did with a young fan, and a response to Drake's Family Matters by having Whitney bloodwalking to the beat and a crowd singing the most brutal parts of the song. Drake's reputation had officially been completely soured at this point, perhaps to a point where it can't even recover. He still has listeners, but his image in the public eye is soured massively. Releasing really interesting songs with Sexy Red and a terrible cover of Hey There Delilah in an attempted Jamaican accent, Aubrey's reputation is in the dirt. Despite this, K. Dot used the influence he had from a toxic beef to spread several positive messages. So, at the end of it all, let me ask you again. What is more important? Ingenuity or popularity?